Hey guys, what is up? My name is Seb and welcome to the Jump Inside monthly podcast. And I'm really excited for this month because we have decided to bring along RPGs. Or for those of you who don't know what RPGs are, they are role-playing games. There are games that you can role-play as different characters and run about, do whatever you like, and just generally make the world your own. In today's podcast, obviously, I've brought along my three wonderful guests that have helped me in the podcast. I'm going to just start off by introducing Bluefox first, because he's just hit his milestone on YouTube of hitting 200 subscribers, if I'm correct.
You're correct, and it's always a pleasure to be here.
Brilliant, awesome. LWood, welcome to the channel. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just chilling in my house, doing a bunch of now streaming. I decided to do a lot more streams than usual, and yeah.
Awesome. And then last but not least, we have the amazing Kamizoide.
It's always a pleasure to be here. Currently, I'm doing great, and I'm preparing for a great series for my channel in hopes that I'll do well.
Ooh, what's the series? Can we know, or is it hidden? Is it all silent?
I can only say about the game. It's gonna completely focus on a game that we'll be talking about right now.
Brilliant, awesome, that is cool. Before we just get started, I just want to let you know that if you guys want to suggest any type of podcasty related videos that we want to do in the future, so whether you want us to do shooters or horror games or anything along that type of narrative, then more than welcome, mention it in the comments below right now and we will read your comments and we will make that episode next time if you want. If not, we'll choose our own. So starting off with Kamizoide, you have brought along a game called Elden Ring. Now, I have not heard of this game. I'm joking, I have. Tell us, what is this game about and just why is it your favorite RPG?
Alright, if we're gonna talk about RPGs, we gotta talk about the biggest one. It was released this year, and of course it is Elden Ring, a game that is literally it's the best ever made, and I mean it's been played so much lately. Now, as you all know, it is created by FromSoft, who are known for making difficult games, and Elden Ring is also a very challenging game, but also it's really easy if you actually look into it. Now, the beauty of Elden Ring and what I love about it so much, and what so many people love about it, is in its content. One thing that is actually shocked me so much, and if you've played Elden Ring, it probably shocked you as well, is the amount of free content in that game. I mean, probably like 45% of some of the locations in the world of Elden Ring is literally, it has nothing to do with the story. It's literally free. You can just go to it or not. You decide. Plus, this game is huge, very, very big, and this is something that it's in my mind. I played Elden Ring a lot, and I'm still playing it today. And I played Horizon Forbidden West. This is something that's always been my mind. When you think about it, Horizon Forbidden West has probably some of the best graphics I've ever seen. But for me, I prefer Elden Ring way more. It doesn't look graphically good, but some of the locations in this game are mind-blowing. They are breathtaking. Plus, there's so much to love about Elden Ring, and so much to hate as well. It's the difficulty is could sometimes get pretty hard, but I love the fact that Elden Ring is hard if you make it hard, and it could be easy if you actually focus on what this game is trying to teach you. The funny thing is, literally 5 minutes into the game, and it teaches you 3 lessons. Yes, number 1 is don't be afraid to die, because you're gonna die a lot. Number 2, if a challenge is too hard, you can always just go and explore the world. And number 3, don't give up, because eventually you'll win. And by far, you can talk about any other RPG or any other game, let's be honest here. If you've played Elden Ring or any of the FromSoft games, there's no greater feeling than overcoming a challenge. And some of the bosses in this game are downright amazing, awesome. I just can't describe them. Some of my favorites, like spoiler alert, I guess. Stark Scourge Radon, greatest of all time, Lord of Chads. Melania, she can go screw herself. I don't want to talk about her. Literally 4 hours of me dying. I don't want to talk about that experience. The fire giant, best looking boss I've ever seen in any video game history. And there's so much I can talk about this game. Literally so much. I'll say this. Don't be too scared to play a difficult game. We all have hard times with video games. Just bear with it and focus on what the game's trying to teach you. Explore the world. It's just so big and beautiful. You'll find so much stuff that could help you in your journey. Don't get mad if you die a lot. We've all died a lot in a video game. And push through it, because I promise you guys, you need to play Elden Ring. And everybody who's listening, try out Elden Ring. You'll have the greatest time of your life. And it'll be a game that you'll forever remember. Because I'm still playing it at like my 4th playthrough. And I'm still having blast with it. And I mean, let's be honest. There isn't any other game that's actually good came out these 4 months, I guess, or 3. So pick up Elden Ring and don't be afraid to die. A lot. We've all died.
So a question then. You mentioned early on there is a lot of free content within this game. Can you describe to me some of the content that this game actually offers?
Well, Elden Ring's based on like traversing through many worlds. I'll say it's called the lands between the world that you're traversing, and there's like many lands that you come through as you go along. And what I meant by that, I think based on the story, only like let's say you only focus on the story, like where you start and where you'll end up. There's I think like 4 or 5 major locations that focus only on the story, and there is probably 6 locations that absolutely have nothing to do with the story, and you can just either want to explore them or just ignore them and move on. And the beauty is these locations are by far beautiful, and 2 has some of the best bosses in the game, even better than some of the main bosses. And I mean, let's be honest, exploration, when you find something on your own, it gives off a really great feeling. And some of these locations are mind-blowing. I mean, there is a location in the first area which is called Limgrave. Literally, there's a small tower that has an elevator that take you to a small cave covered with literal space. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just beautiful. And finding that place, I was mind blown, man. And this game exploration is really done very well. That's why you would want to find more location, explore more areas, and that's why for me, I think I loved the side content, which are the other designed areas in this game, more than the main areas. Even though the main areas are still really good to explore and all, but finding new locations and the location that have nothing to do with the story is downright a beautiful experience for me. And the feeling you have when you find a new location, a new environment to explore, new items, weapons, a new boss to beat you up is amazing. And I'm pretty sure everybody who played Elden Ring and find a new location that out of nowhere is downright amazed by its beauty, I think.
I did not have the opportunity to play Elden Ring just yet, but I did play other From Software games such as Dark Souls 3. How would you say that the team has developed the open world and the openness of their model? Because of course, games like Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne are known to be, much more restrictive in exploration. I mean, you have to face that boss, you have to face it, you have to go through tight corridors, and there is no alternatives. While in Elden Ring, apparently there's a whole universe to explore. So how does the From Software formula work in this environment?
For Elden Ring, it's way different than Dark Souls 3. In Dark Souls 3, it feels a little bit like you are forced to go to some of these locations and forced to fight some of these bosses. Like it's the only way to progress forward. Meanwhile, on Elden Ring, you can literally go to the let's say there are like 6 main bosses for the story. Yeah. And what's the beauty of Elden Ring? You can literally skip 3 of the first main story bosses and go straight to the 4th one, and the game won't stop you. What's beautiful about and different about Elden Ring than the other FromSoft games is the other Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro. They tell you where you need to go. Like you have to follow this path in order to progress furthermore in the game. Meanwhile, on Elden Ring, you can play it however you want. You can fight any boss you want. It doesn't follow like a path. You create your own path, and that's why I love this formula so much. And the change from the Dark Souls formula to this new formula they did with Elden Ring is so much beautiful, and it's and the beauty is done better than so many other games who tried it. Yeah, that's a good way to sum it up.
Cool. And before I move on to the next section of the next game, in one sentence then, Kamizoide, what would you say to someone who hasn't played Elden Ring before? How would you sell it to them in like one defining sentence?
If you really wanna, if you wanna play a really great game that everybody's talking about it and it's gonna be Game of the Year, just go out and play Elden Ring. What other choice do you have? There isn't any other game that you'll probably buy.
Alright, and so moving on to next, Bluefox, you have brought a game called Fallout, which is one of my dear in heart favorite games, because I came in at Fallout 3 and Fallout and I played a bit of Fallout Vegas and I played a bit of Fallout 4, so I know some of the Fallout stuff and some of the Fallout lore, but you've played Fallout 1997.
Yes, indeed. Today I would like to talk about the first Fallout, the OG of the series. A title that is perhaps been forgotten by many modern fans because way different than the modern formula Bethesda has adopted for their newer titles, but nonetheless an important game that has defined both the series itself, of course, but also all post-apocalyptic games that came afterwards. So the first Fallout, as the premise of the whole series is that it's set in a post-world America after a nuclear war with China and the rest of the world, and you come out of a vault and search for the water chip, since without it the vault cannot produce water and thus will inevitably be destroyed. And once you leave the vault after 50 or 100 years after the war, you see a different world from what America used to be. So with gangs, with factions, with mutated animals, irradiated lakes and whatnot. So it is your duty in the game to explore this world, find the water chip, and of course undercover all the mystery that it has. Fallout 1 is the original RPG, as if the RPGs from the 90s that had every freedom the player could ask for. You can kill every character, you can have dialogue choices that are deep and rooted, you can have many different secrets that if you would not find them, you would not be told where to find them, because many modern titles, they have a side quest that they tell you with a beautiful marker to go to a place, talk to a person and do whatever, and your pit boy, you would have all the instructions. Here you have to have faith on the people, you have to talk to them and be inquisitive about your actions, and then they will tell you where to go, but there will be no marker, there will be no map telling you, oh yeah, you have to meet this person that's level 35 or whatever. No, you gotta find it yourself. It's the purest RPG that I've ever played, and it made me question about the modern RPGs Bethesda's made, because in the case of Fallout 3, I can already see that there was a simplification for the formula, trying to make the game more accessible, which, to be fair, it is fair, and I also started playing Fallout series at Fallout 3. New Vegas tries to go a bit backwards because it's made by the same people who have made Fallout 1, so they understood what the Fallout RPG style should be, and they reintroduce those mechanics of not being telling the player explicitly what to do, but more implicit and let them undercover it. But then Fallout 4 takes a U-turn and completely destroys what I think is the soul of the original Fallout. People complain about Fallout 76 because it's badly made, and I think this is no secret. But it's badly made for different reasons, because it's a multiplayer, survival-ish game that doesn't quite work. While Fallout 4, for me, it's simply not an RPG as the original game should be, and it doesn't allow the player to do anything in contrast. So the first Fallout 1 is it is a bit old. It takes kind of a lot of time to get used to. There's a mod called Fallout Fix that kind of helps out with fixing the major bugs and making the experience more, bit more reliable and a bit more intuitive. Like the companion mechanics that were later introduced to the series. In the original game they were absent, so managing companions is hellfire. But in this case, with the Fallout Fix mod, it's much more better experience. It's not even too long, it's about 20-ish hours, and I really enjoyed it. And I think it's, well, although it's a bit old and I would not suggest to non-Fallout fans to play it, I would still recommend to learn from it, from the developers, and see what Fallout 1 made for the RPG genre.
I do have a question for you. Now, I gotta be honest here, I didn't play any of the Fallout games, but I did check them out. I've always been interested in trying them out. But I want to ask you this. Now, you did play the first and probably most of the Fallout games. Which gameplay do you think it's better? You think the Fallout 1's type of gameplay is better than the new way of their gameplay? Like the third, they changed up the formula to like first person, I think, and the fourth one kept it going like that. Well, the first game, it had a different formula for the gameplay. Which one do you think is better?
You're absolutely right. The formula of the gameplay, especially the combats, has changed drastically from the first two Fallouts that had an asymmetric turn-based style of game. Perhaps if you see a gameplay, it's easier to see than to say, but it is kind of mechanical, while the modern Fallouts are FPS, so they're a bit more easy to play. However, in Fallout 3 and New Vegas, there are still some of the elements present in Fallout 1. So for instance, if your character had low skills in firearm combat, then your character would not be very good at aiming, and if you shoot, you would not hit the enemy even if it's very close to you. On the other hand, so in that case, I would say that Fallout 3 and New Vegas are a good compromise to make the franchise modern, but also keeping that kind of soul Fallout 1 has introduced. However, in Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, the game was made an FPS. I mean, if you are very good at shooting, you will get the game very easily. And that's kind of breaking the soul of RPG, because no longer is important what skills your character has, are the skills that you have when shooting. So while it's, again, much more freeable because it's easier to play Fallout 4 than Fallout 3 or even Fallout 1, however, I do think that it does ruin the point of the game, and I do not like the direction that the Bethesda took.
Okay, question then. Yeah, okay, so a lot of people are gonna be the ones that are watching this video, and they'll be like, right, okay, I really enjoyed Fallout 4. I haven't actually even dipped into Fallout 1 and 2. What elements then are in 1 and 2 that Fallout 4 doesn't quite hit?
In one word, I would say freedom. Freedom is the thing that misses from Fallout 4. In Fallout 4, it's fake freedom. When you speak to characters, you have 4 dialogue options, which are usually yes, yes but sarcastic, no, and can you ask the question again? Like, it appears to be a role-playing game because, of course, you can edit your character, you can edit your skills, you can be a good guy or a bad guy. But in reality, Fallout 4 is extremely limited. If you think about the first quest, when you have to liberate the Minutemen from the public library because there's a Deathclaw side, there is simply no dialogue options that can let you to fight them or just leave. You have to help them, and there are no compromises. Well, in Fallout 1, you can literally kill every single NPC, even the ones important for the main quest, and you can break the main quest if you're not careful, but you can still play the game. And you can finish the game rather quickly. The main quest is not the end goal, it's just the quest that allows you to leave the vault, right? It's like the premise of the game. But once you leave the vault, there are gonna be a lot of quests that are freely, yeah, you can choose freely how to do them. Of course, again, it is a game that was released in 1997, so there are technical limitations that right now are a bit laughable. But at the same time, it's much more organic, the experience. You don't have like all indicators that tells you where to go and like, oh, okay, you have to do this, this, and this, like a checklist. That's no freedom. The real freedom Fallout 1 has is that you have to make your adventure based on the things you've been told, that you remember, the dialogues you have read and you have extracted information from, not because your Pit-Boy tells you that that's a quest or not. There are many quests that are not marked as ones, but once you do them, you receive the reward. Because you have to learn from the people you talk to, not from like the quest log you have. So freedom is the thing that I would say that Fallout 1 does the best, that new games from the series do not do.
Okay, and one more question on that one. As you say, the choice of freedom, being able to do whatever you want to do. And just spoilers for anyone who's actually listening right now. In Fallout 3, because it was one of my first favorite kind of options that I walked into. After I escaped the vault and I walked into a town, there was a bomb and I got a mission to disarm the bomb, and I had two choices. And I think this is one of the more big, shocking choices that you can do at the beginning of the game, and you're not quite sure how it impacts, but it slams for you going, yeah, this game's about choice as soon as you go straight into the game. And the choices that you get is being able to actually, keep the town safe and, all happy, la-di-da-di, or you can literally blow up the entire town of Megaton if you do so wish, and you can then live in a hotel with clean water and all that kind of stuff, and you actually affect the game world. In Fallout 1, is there elements in the game where you actually change what the world looks like?
Yes, I am thinking of examples before making major spoilers. But if people who have played the game are listening to the podcast, there is one way to defeat the final boss, and that one way is unlocked only if you talk to a certain character and you talk about a certain topic. And that's not like explicit, that can be purely skipped. I thought I knew I had the dialogue options, but I didn't, because I realized that I've died after doing a quest, so then I had to restart, and I didn't do the whole dialogue again, so I kind of skipped it. But if I would have done the whole dialogue, the character would have known about a certain detail, again I'm keeping a bit vague, a certain detail about the evil guy's plan that would make that plan kind of go bonkers. And then the end boss would be defeated another way, and that's shocking, because in modern games in modern Fallout games you can do certain actions, as you said, like destroy a whole town or keeping it safe. But even there, it's made very explicit to the player that there are two options, and it's again usually two options, either good or bad. But in the old Fallout games, it was all kind of secret. It was a bit of a gray area, and again, you can kill every character, even if it's important for the main quest. So it breaks the game. You can break the game. You can make it unplayable, but that doesn't stop the player. In new games, you can't clear certain characters because they're just important, because they appear to certain cutscenes, and then the game would break. And that's Bethesda doesn't allow you, because they have made a game that lasts like 60 hours, and they don't want you to break it. So you'll have no right to do so. And it's a bit of a shame, of course.
That's cool. And on saying that, those little bits of information goes like there are dialogue options, and there are when you can affect stuff just because you may have forgotten to do a certain thing can affect the entire gameplay and how it actually feels as a game itself. It's generally one of the best. That there is a selling point for me. I will be now picking this up as a game, and I'll be playing through it. Because I have not played through Fallout 1 ever, so that's a good reason for me to play it.
Yeah. One thing, I'm sorry to cut you off, one thing that I should mention, another reason why I loved Elden Ring so much is because of its freedom, allowing the player to create his own story. And even though Fallout very different in the style of Elden Ring, I'm actually interested to trying it out. Since if in Fallout 1 you can actually do all the stuff you talked about, Bluefox, that really got my attention, I really want to try it out and see what kind of story I can create. I'm really interested.
Again, if you want to play the game, I do highly suggest you to play with the Fallout Fix mod, because there are some bugs that are quite annoying without it.
And B, if you play any of these games, do yourself a favor, don't watch YouTube tutorials about them, because like just go straight into them blind. That's the best way they're meant to be played. So I'm going to move on to my game of choice, and my game of choice is going to be Fable. And I'm picking this game not because it's a little bit different, but it's still an RPG, because things like, as far as I'm aware, Elden Ring and Fallout games, they're big open world. There's no barriers around areas. One thing I love about Fable, is that even though it's like it's area RPG, so like you're fighting in an area, and the choices that you make in that area affect different places. I love the dialogue options and being able to talk about certain things in parts of the game, and it being able to affect the actual story itself. I'm gonna give an example, because I'm kind of doing like talking about the whole of the Fable series, because in each Fable game there are different scenarios in any of this. There is one quest in Fable 2 where there's this mission. It's a little bit hidden away. It's not a major mission, but kind of near the beginning, kind of mid-tone of the game, there's a choice where there are some farmers. I think that's correct, and you can go in there and you can either save them via this mission, or you can kind of let it pass you by and not even worry about the mission. And it's all cool. You don't actually have to do the mission. You can just skip it and the game feels fine. But later on, as you continue to play the game, and when you reach more near the end and you get to have lots more cash, and you get to go like, right, I can now start, buying property, earn more money, and not have to worry about money, and buy all these cool weapons. You can go to these areas and purchase them, and sometimes you might go to this area that you didn't have a quest through earlier on in the game, and then it's not a lovely city anymore. It's not a lovely little farm zone, because that raving ravager monster thing that you didn't kill at one point in the game has now destroyed the area, and now those people don't live there, and you can't develop that area into whatever you want it to be. And now it's not a lovely luscious green land. It's now a destructive, destroyed piece of area. And it's the options in these types of games of having choice to go like, do you become this guy who speeds through along the game or skip certain things and turns into a guy whose only ideal is to just get the job done? Or do you not do that, and do you actually do these side missions? Do you invest in areas? There's one mission also that I really like, because in Fable 2, I don't know why I said Fallout, but in Fable 2, there's a place where there's an arena, and you have to enter an arena to get somewhere. But there's a little investment mission that a guy goes, invest in me. It's only worth 2,000 gold. If you donate into me, then da-da-da. And if you donate into him at that point in the game, and you keep doing those donation missions, then this area that he controls turns into something wonderful. But if you don't, it can go the opposite direction, and it can turn bad, or maybe he even dies because he didn't get the investment. So it's one of those games that are about choice. What do you do in certain parts of the game, and how that affects the future of the game? In Fable 3, this really takes a toll because in Fable 3, you get to... Your job at the end of the day is to become king and to rule the land. And you get a choice of what is the proposition of should you care about the people and their needs, or should you care about the kingdom needs? So it's like, do you do what's good for the people, or do you do what's good for the people, as in for the war section? Because there's a war that goes on. So you're like, right, do I invest money into the war, or do I invest money, and save lives, or do I invest money into their happiness now and they won't hate me? Do you turn into a player that somebody hates but they're alive, or they're all dead but they kind of like you and you lose people along the way? Where do you invest your money into? How do you save people? Could you, for example, do everything, or do you become a bad king? And my favorite part in all of the Fable games, in the eventuality of number 3, is it's got so much replayability because you can earn money, a lot of money, by being an evil person, and you can transfer that money to different of your accounts. So you could do a full run through being an evil character, transfer the money to your good character that you plan on doing, and then see what the good choices are. So you can do all the evil options, see what the evil playthrough is like, and then do a completely different playthrough and see all the differences. So it's I think that's one thing important about all these RPGs we've been mentioning, because of for Elden Ring and for Fallout, you can do things different ways. So there's replayability options that, I'll be fair, I didn't get in other games. So like GTA would, for example, be an RPG, but I don't know if it would count as a proper RPG, because you can only play that game one way, can't you? It's a one-way thing. You can do different things, but it's still just a one-directional kind of story game. So yeah.
I still don't count. I still don't count GTA as an RPG.
Before we go into the debate of what's an RPG and what isn't, I would like to ask you a question about the rumored but announced game of Fable 4 that Playground Games are apparently developing for over 2 years using the new Forza Horizon engine. What are your hopes for new title?
When I heard Playground Games were actually developing a new title for the game, I think a lot of Fable fans were excited and scared. Just as I was when I first saw the first trailer for the movie Sonic the Hedgehog. I was both excited and scared for the same reasons. I love the fact it's getting made, but will it be what I want it to look like and what I want it to be? I generally have no idea. It's as much hope as I got with foreseeing that first trailer for the game Starfield. It's like I need more information to make a decision based on it. One thing I will say is if there has to be it's an RPG. There has to be certain options. It has to be a good story. It has to have good comedy, because one thing about Fable, it's always been about stupid comedy, which is just that's just a thing that it needs, and it needs also it needs world affecting stuff. Yeah, it has to have those choices in it. You can't go through the game and not being able to change what the world looks like. That's Fable's biggest selling point. And yeah, and I'm not too bothered about becoming king and such, but I think it would be a nice addition if they gave you some sort of power over other characters. Why can you fight and other people can't, kind of scenario? Like, that was always like, oh, you're gonna be a hero, you're gonna be a king or something. So it's like, you've got to know this stuff, and yeah. But yeah, no, it's got to have the comedy, it's got to have the world changing, and it's got to have the speech. Those are my kind of like major 3 factors, because yeah, that's just what Fable's all about. Yeah, no, okay. I've been speaking for ages, and LWood's back. LWood's going to bring along his game and talk to us about Mario and Luigi.
I know this series kind of seems a little bit unorthodox to bring to this podcast, but I feel like it was a very big part of my childhood. It was Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. It was a very good game. Like, it brought a new twist to the Mario and Luigi and Bowser feud, where they actually had to work with him to defeat a greater evil. And they had to do it inside Bowser because they were consumed by him. And so they have you get to see what Bowser was on the inside, and you actually get to control Bowser for the first time in these cool RPG style turn-based battles where you punch and you burn and you do a bunch of Mario and Luigi things. Yeah.
A Mario game based inside of Bowser? Clearly that doesn't make any sense to me. How did anybody come up with this?
Well, again, you're talking about two plumbers defeating a giant lizard, keeping a princess in a kingdom full of mushrooms. So I don't think making sense is the priority in this series.
It was a very late night.
Yeah, it was a very late night story.
That people were drunk.
Yeah.
Developers were smoking. They were
smoking doobies, as you Britishmen would say.
And yeah, that was
How would you describe the gameplay? Because from a story perspective, I would say that Mario and Luigi is not an RPG on the level of the games we've brought in this podcast. But gameplay-wise, how would you explain it?
Well, I would say it's kind of like a platform-based, your basic RPG style type of game. But it has that Mario twist. You break blocks and defeat Goombas and stuff like that.
Is it turn-based?
Yeah, you actually have to get experience points and build up their moveset and stuff.
And this is available. Is this available on the just the 3DS, isn't it? The Nintendo 3DS.
Yeah, the Nintendo DS and the 3DS. I think any DS model can play it.
So also my question is the area. How big is kind of the area that you are in when you're in these places? Is there
it's pretty the Bowser side of the story is pretty big. You get to travel around the Mushroom Kingdom and follow in the sandy beaches and deserts and stuff. When you're inside Bowser, you get to see his stomach, his muscles and stuff.
Gotta be honest here. Sorry to cut you off. Gotta be honest here. I don't think seeing the insides of Bowser is something that I'm interested in. Cause nah.
Well, it's not like that. It's much more fun once you get into the game, and there's evil baddies you have to defeat inside Bowser, big bosses and stuff.
Okay. Would you say it's more like the original Mario kind of feel, or would you say it's very more Pokemon DS type feel in this kind of
Yeah, it's got
world?
more of a RPG style feel, with the turn-based battles and stuff. But it definitely keeps some of the Mario-based characters you got.
Okay, that sounds cool. Awesome. Right. I think that's mainly most of it. We're going to move on to the final section right now. Blue Fox, do you want to introduce this part?
Right, so we have brought many games this evening, or whenever you're hearing this podcast, but we have to tackle the elephant in the room. So what makes an RPG an RPG? Because there was a spark of debate before where we were a bit unsure which games to call RPGs or not before the podcast started. And since we have seen many phases of the RPG genre, what would be our final conclusion? What defines an RPG?
I think a turn-based RPG style, like a few characters, maybe like a party is in like this magical world or something. Then they have like turn-based battles where everyone has their like own powers. Like you have your healer, your like wizard, swords guy, and then gun guy, and then you know what I mean, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, and they have to like defeat this giant evil that's cursing the land or something.
Right, but let's go back to the question in hand. Because there are games that have turn-based that we don't consider to be RPG, like Civilization. But there are some games that don't have turn-based, like Fable, that we do. So perhaps, Seb, I don't know, what is your take on this question that I posed?
I want places and people, that feel alive, and I want to develop, like, care about this place. I want these places to have hidden stories that I can go into and discover and read books about. That, you know, I may not read the big book of this location, but I know that it's there, so I have the option to, and having the option to do something makes it feel more alive. And so the fact is that that's a place. I want to be able, you know, and these are the people that are in these areas. I want to care about that, and after I care about it, I want and then this is where my bit comes in. Like this is what I think an RPG should do. Yeah, be having the option to, if I do nothing, that place goes bye bye, boom boom, and gets destroyed. And the people that I care about, you know, that I enjoy talking to in these RPG games that have these awesome dialogue options, they go die if I don't help them out. Like, I want death and destruction that is happening, that I can...
You want consequences for your choices.
I want consequences. Yeah, a big thing. I want consequences in these games. I want to be able to go, like, if I don't have the options of... If I don't do something, bad things will happen. I think that's very important. What's the point of making this really awesome character in this video game if there's no options of this person getting shot if I don't do something about it? Like, you know, it's just that these are elements like that change the world, and I want to be able to have that in my game. So, yeah, I think that's my factor that I'm adding in. Yeah.
And you, Kamizoide?
I'll say for me, what makes an RPG really good for me is world building and character freedom. And what I mean by character freedom is allowing the player to literally do whatever he wants and create his own story, build his own character based on what stats he wants to focus on, what weapons he wants to use, and create his own type of gameplay, play the game however he wants. I want games that focus on player freedom, allowing him to craft his own story and play it however he wants. And world building, of course, because RPGs have to focus really on world building, because there are some few RPGs where the world is literally either dead or not interesting, and that's something that can ruin a game. So I'll say for an RPG to be really good, it should have great world building, interesting worlds to visit, places to go to and stuff, and player freedom, allowing the player to control the story rather than the story controlling him, and gameplay freedom to play the game however you want and not how the game wants to. So I'll say that.
I believe that the word that we have used the most to describe an RPG is freedom, both in the gameplay, in the action, in the choices of what moves to make in one turn, of which armor to equip, which weapons to use, but also in the exploration, in the consequences, in the what boss to fight, or what mission to take, what quests to complete, what quests to fail. It's what makes an RPG such.
Yeah, I want to just add something on the end of that as well when you say freedom and all that kind of thing. Like, generally right now, if there's a good option or a bad, like, this is just to developers out there, if you happen to listen to this, there's like, if there's like a good option and a bad option, yeah, 9 times out of 10, I don't know what you guys would agree with, we're all going to pick the good option, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. For the first run.
So having that good option and bad option, I think 90% of players are always going to pick the good option. So having the bad option there isn't so much appealing to many people. I think the thing that makes it appealing when it comes to freedom and being able to play things is being able to have different skills in a player. Like, for example, how many of you then have, for example, played your first way through as a swordsman and then your second playthrough as an archer? I mean, like, I've definitely done that in a lot of my games where I've gone
yes.
like in other games where I've been like, okay, I'm going to study in magic this round because I did swordplay last time. It was great. I just want to see what magic's like. You know, like, being good or evil isn't as much as a replay option as adding like a magic and adding sword plays and, like, you know, develop in your magic arts when you make these games, because they're gonna make the game really nice and, you know, they're gonna sparkle. But yeah, that's just my last opinion on that. Is anyone?
Yeah, I got something. I'll also say choices. I mean, you said that most of us and probably anyone will pick the good choice first time playing, and for the second playthrough we'll pick the bad choice. I think you probably guys know this, but sometimes there are games that offer you a good choice and bad choice, and no matter which one you pick, it ends up the same. You just continue the game like nothing's going on, and that's really bad. In my opinion, there's a game that I should mention. It's another FromSoft game, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. This game had a good option and bad option, and it did it very well, because the good option has its own proper ending and actually gives off more content, while if you pick the bad option, the story ends right there. And I really love this aspect, because it changes up the whole game. And it shows that if you make a bad choice, then you're gonna suffer the consequences. Unlike some other games, well, if you make either the good choice or bad choice, you literally gain nothing or lose nothing. And I'll say that for RPGs, the choices have to have meaning, because if I'm gonna decide something, then I have to see what I gain from it and what I lose. And if I'm not gonna lose anything or gain anything, then why did I waste my time making this choice?
It's a step forward for this. What you have said about choices is to make choices less obvious, because some games, like Fallout 4, make it very clear what's the bad option and the good option, the good route and the bad route. While in games like Fallout 1, it's a bit unclear. You have to dig in, you have to talk to characters, and you have to investigate what other options you got on the table. Yes, you're presented with 2 outcomes, but the way you are going to reach those 2 outcomes is not going to be by choosing yes or no to a dialogue choice. It's going to be through actions you have learned through dialogue, had with characters, with things you have said, the things you have said in the right time at the right place, not with the list that you can just talk to the character all over again and have all options available. So that's the freedom of the player to have when taking the options.
Right on quickly, without talking about them too much, just games out there that are RPG that you guys generally like. Are there any quickly that you think people should dive into some RPG games? Because I'm just going to mention 2 real quickly, which are like games like Mass Effect and Dragon Age for choices and stuff like that, and world changing stuff. Those games like hit my soul. Like, just what games do you hit your guys's? Like mine.
I'll say, I'll go first. I'll say try out Elden Ring, and you're probably gonna enjoy it. And with that, you can try out the other FromSoft games. They're really good, and they're solid RPGs. But for another game, I'll say this is something that I truly recommend to so many people, especially to people who are like me, haven't been into the Final Fantasy games, and I truly recommend Final Fantasy VII Remake because it's a JRPG game, and also I think for me, Final Fantasy VII Remake by far has one of the best gameplay mechanics I truly fell in love with. And I'll always play that game because of its gameplay. I love what they did with the gameplay, combining between the old classic ways of Final Fantasy with the new, how gaming has changed, and the added new stuff, new elements to the gameplay, changing it up completely, but remaining to what makes Final Fantasy Final Fantasy. And I love how they added the typical fashion gameplay of hack and slash, go in, kill your opponent, but with that they added strategic elements into the game, making you defeat your opponent strategically with your controlling your party or switch between the characters to do certain moves that do lots of damage to enemies. So I'll say, if you're not a fan of the Final Fantasy games because of their gameplay formula, I'll suggest try out Final Fantasy VII Remake. You're probably gonna love it, and the gameplay is not what you think it is. It's actually much better, and if you put your thought into it and try it out, you're really gonna love it. That's another a JRPG game. I truly recommend anybody who's listening to try it out. You're really gonna like it.
Very cool. LWood, you got 1 minute. Yep, 1 minute. What games are you thinking?
I recommend South Park Fractured But Whole. They do a lot of good superhero references and also South Park references, and their turn-based style is pretty good. So if you're looking for a good entry point into RPGs, I would probably say that's a good one, or The Stick of Truth. Like if you're a fan of South Park or adult stuff like that. So yeah.
Awesome. And Bluefox, you also got 1 minute. Go.
I would say 2 games. I will suggest The Witcher 3. I think it needs no introduction. One of the best Western RPGs in existence. And for JRPGs, I would suggest Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It sounds very generic. It has that kind of anime appeal that seems very similar to Dragon Quest and whatnot, but it is very unique in gameplay structure.
Brilliant. Awesome. Right. Okay. Guys, thanks for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to subscribe to, obviously, Bluefox, LWood, and Kamizoide. Check out their channels. Their links are in the description down below. They make really awesome content. And I do want to mention that if you do want to check out on some RPG videos about RPGs, go to Bluefox's channel, I'll mention, because he has made a video about RPGs and about open world stuff that I will point the links to in the descriptions down below. So if you want to check out those videos for more discussions, definitely check those ones out. Anyway, please don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next Jump Inside podcast. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Ta-ra from me.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.
Arrivederci.